Welcome to today's episode of Flow Meter Guy, where the currents of wit and wisdom flow as smoothly as the meters we discuss and the people who use them. Joining me today is one of my oldest confidant, my fiercest nemesis, and at times a cunning competitor in the wild world of flow meter solutions. So, buckle up as we dive into a conversation that's bound to be turbulent and fascinating as the unique flow meter applications we try to solve. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the studio, my friend, Jeff Merman. Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Brent.
Thanks for coming into Atlanta to say hello to us today.
Oh, hey, I wouldn't miss it. Thank you for letting me come online.
Who are you, and what do you do for a living?
Well, again, my name's Jeff Merman, and I previously served as president of the Automatic Controls Company. It's a company that my wife and I own together, and we actually work together in it.
Wow.
Yes, 35 years, and we're still married.
That's amazing.
Yes,
Goodness.
going on 50 years. Be 50 years next year.
Really? Congratulations.
Yes, well, thank you. In my line of work, I sold instrumentation and, yes, flow meters.
Flow meters.
Yes.
That's why he's here.
Indeed. We recently restarted. I don't like the word retired because it sounds like you're going to die. So, yes, we've restarted. And, you know, Brent, the business just got to the point that the income per aggravation unit wasn't there. Mm-hmm. Love solving problems, love helping customers. But the climate to do business, purchasing people that have to groom you. Yeah. I had a guy in purchasing at a company I won't mention that said, Jeff, you keep talking partnership. This is supposed to be an adversarial role. And I looked at him and said, sir, I'm a Roman Catholic, married to my wife for a lot of years. This will be a partnership until you tell me it's not. And, it's that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, and my blood pressure was going crazy.
Yeah.
So we restarted. My blood pressure instantly went down 30 points. Recently, my wife's gone on blood pressure medicine because hers has gone up 20. I don't know what that says.
There's a correlation there?
Don't know. So yeah, that's what I was and am. And now, as I was sharing a little bit earlier, I'm out doing fun things. Yeah. Among others, I'm trying to become an ATV influencer on the internet. I had to take a job.
Had to take a job, huh?
Yes, yeah.
Part of your restart.
Yes, indeed. I took a job teaching ATVs to teenagers. Some interesting fun facts about that very briefly. I think when it was all said and done, 6 days a week, 24 hours a day on call, get 24 hours off to go home. When I was done putting the program together and doing the work, I think I made a whopping 87 cents an hour.
You did?
I did. And had a lot of fun at it, met some great people. The one thing that's interesting, it's the only contract in my entire career that had a requirement, well, not optional, it was a requirement to shower once a day.
Is that so?
Yes, indeed.
Did you shower today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's good. That was a requirement for being on our show today.
Well, there were several. You had a very high standard of quality for this.
So that's your restart plan?
Yeah, well, and travel.
And travel?
Travel, yes. Long ago, I made a promise to my son and my son-in-laws that Peggy and I were going to travel the world, travel the country. Yeah. We were going to ride horses across the Serengeti, camels across the Sahara. We were going to float the Amazon. We were going to do all things, come in kicking, screaming, dust flying, get up, dust off, and live with each one of them until they threw us out.
Until they threw you out?
Yeah.
Huh? What do they think about that?
Yeah, they gave me this look of horror because, they were new to the family and they weren't quite sure how to take me.
Uh-huh. And nobody really is.
And they're still guessing.
Yeah, no, that's why we had to sign the release form.
I see.
Just in case. And we do have some editing that we may have from time to time.
No trouble.
So how did you get involved with the Baird family turning back the Wayback Machine?
That goes back to the days of Dynasonics.
It does. So back, we started Dynasonics in the late 1977. So it probably, early 80s?
I sat and actually calculated it out. It was about 1986.
Does it?
Yes, and this story puts me in mind of a joke. Can I tell a joke?
Why not?
Okay. Moses, Pope Francis, and a ultrasonic flow meter rep go into a bar. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting there. Pope Francis is drinking wine. Moses is drinking wine. The sales rep is drinking bourbon, of course. And Pope Francis pipes in and says, "I can change bread and wine into the body and blood of our Lord." Everybody kind of shakes their head. And Moses pipes in and says, every day when I get into the tub, I do this. The water parts
the water.
I walk right into the bathtub. I sit down, and I'm on dry ground until I put my hands back down.
There you go.
And the sales rep, he looks at both of them and says, I got you topped. I can make a Dynasonics ultrasonic Doppler flow meter work.
From the outside of a pipe.
Yes,
from
the outside of a pipe, I can make that work and make customers believe the numbers.
Believe that as well?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. No, our history back, Dynasonics was one of the first manufacturers of ultrasonic flow meters that my father and I started way back when, and Jeff was one of the first sales reps we had.
Yes.
And this was that in Cincinnati at the time before you moved to Louisville?
Yes, indeed. I started at Automatic Controls in Cincinnati in 1985.
Yeah.
In 86, we started working together. And then long about, the mid-90s, we moved to Louisville.
Down to Louisville. Yeah. Then all things started. So we were both a couple of green guys. And I remember that I was so green when I went out in the field then. I was kind of like Forrest Gump's brother. And I'd go into like a pulp and paper plant, and I'd have a blue suit on with a tie, go into plant, and I'd come out and I'd be speckled full of spots, like a bunch of sick seagulls flew over top of me. And I'd ask the customer for the order. And the customer said, "Don't need one now. You did a nice flow survey for me. Thanks much." And it'd be on my way. And so have you ever had an experience like that, people taking advantage of you at your young age until you learn the craft?
Yeah, and it's funny, and it was in a blue suit. I was visiting the TVA plant in Paradise, Kentucky. Now, Paradise is famous thanks to John Prine and the song Paradise. Yeah. But yes, Paradise, Kentucky. It was a prep plant. It was a full coal-fired plant. And I'm in bragging on this new portable ultrasonic Doppler flow meter. I said, "This will work on anything with solids." And they're saying, "Well, hey, we've got some lime slurry pipes. Yeah. Shoot, if you can make that work, we'll buy one." Well, of course, I'm going to show them. I'm in my nice blue suit with my tie, and we're going to go out. And so we walk out, and custom as I was, the customers helping me get set up, they were going to be a big help. They said, "Hey, we got a harness here for you." And okay, safety's first, got all my safety stuff on. I said, "So where's the pipe?" They said, "It's kind of out there." And I'm looking at this pipe that's extending out beyond the mezzanine, and I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, so how do you get out there?" So you got to kind of shinny out on the pipe. Now I'm in a blue suit in a lime plant, which is all white, right? Yeah. So I got this nice polyester suit on, and I'm scooting out on the pipe, and I'm rubbing the pipe with my hand, and the guy tosses me a rag, and I wipe it off to get nice and clean. I'm balancing myself, putting my grease on, stick the thing on, and I keep pushing the button, and they're saying, "Oh, so how you doing out there?" I said, "Well, not so good. I'm not getting a reading." They said, "Well, you better come on back in." So, I carefully wipe all the grease off as I was properly trained, so that you don't want to leave anything behind. And so I'm scooting back off, and I get back, on the mezzanine, climb back over. I'm all white. And the engineer looks at me and says, "Well, how'd it go?" I said, "Well, I'll have to check, but I'm guessing that, the suspended solids are here, probably too small for the meter." So, yeah, that's what the last guy said. And I said, the last guy, I said, yeah, all these guys keep coming in with this meter and says it works, and not a single one's worked so far. I said, well, why didn't you tell me that? She said, we just want to see a guy in a blue suit scoot out there on a pipe and try and make it work. So once or twice.
We live and learn, huh?
Hey,
I think that's when we instituted a rental program. They said, okay, tell you what, why don't you just rent it and go do it yourself?
And I developed this technique where I said, well, sure, I'm happy to demonstrate it. So we demonstrate it. And they said, well, can we try it over here? I said, yeah, we can do that. But 2 is a demonstration, 3 is a service call, and my rate's $200 an hour.
There you go.
I said, okay, well, we'll do one more.
There you go. We'll do one more. And those for our audience not aware, but ultrasonic technology back then was the infancy of a device that we clamped on the outside of the pipe to measure liquids in the inside of the pipe. And just like every technology, it had a beginning, it had an evolution. We learned a little bit about it. Some of the customers thought that it worked every place, and they ignored the specifications, which was a problem that we had. What's 100 parts per million, 30 microns? Nobody knew what that was.
No.
And if I'm not going to drink it, it's dirty, was pretty much the comment. So we went in all different applications. So what kind of industries did you call on down in Louisville, Kentucky? What was your marketplaces there? Water, wastewater, chemical? What were you selling your products to?
Well, first of all, my territory was basically southern Indiana, Kentucky, and the world. I actually
have big territory.
I have equipment in China, and I have equipment in Buenos Aires, and tried to go on a startup on that one, but the customer actually got a quote from me, but decided not. So applications, gosh. Speaking to flow, our company did water, did compressed air, natural gas. So we covered the full gamut chemicals. Yeah. So, the beautiful thing about my territory is when people say, what industry were you in? I said, yes, because Kentucky is rich. We have heavy automotive, thank you, Toyota, as well as Ford and GM with their Corvettes. We have chemical, thank you, Calvert City, and thank you, Rubber Town. So, we have heavy chemical. Of course, utilities, as I mentioned before, power plants. We have 6 different utilities just in Kentucky. We have semiconductor. We have water and wastewater. I'm actually certified by the state, which is another funny story, but certified with the state to be a trainer on training how to use flow meters.
How'd that come about?
I joined KRWA. Yeah. Kentucky Rural Water Association, some wonderful people, great organization. And there's rural water associations all over the country, hint, hint to other reps. And of course, one of their big things they do is leak detection. So, long pipes, how do you find a leak? Well, shut the pipe off and see if it's still leaking. Sure. So being the only guy they've ever met that could make a transit time flow meter work, they were very interested in having me share my wisdom.
There you go.
And I learned that, oh, by the way, if I get certified by the state, they can write a specification that says, and must be trained by a state certified representative. So it worked out very well.
Excellent.
And had a lot of fun with that. As we were talking earlier, I have classes, and I'd promised some humor and some wit, and got some chuckles, and I got a big chuckle when the guy fell asleep. In a small class, I'd like to toss out candy when somebody got an answer right. So the guy in the back corner sleeping, I'd bump him in the head with the candy, and by golly, nobody slept in my classes, and everybody had some fun.
There you go. There you go. They really enjoyed that.
Absolutely. Well, and was asked to do quite a few. And frankly, I had a professional engineer tell me in one of the courses I did, ironically, on a transit time flow meter, was that was the caliber of class, that if any professional engineer sat in on it, they could count it for professional development units.
That's great. And that's really the way you present the class. So, for example, when the transit times first came out, some of the portables, and in particular, we did some work with GE a few years back, you had to go to school for a week.
Yep.
You had to go for school for a week, and then what we've evolved over the time, and obviously you picked on, is you don't need to know everything, but you need to know the right things for this type of application to solve it, and then know what the diagnostics are if you needed to do that. and you could simplify it, compact the whole thing there so the guy can go and not be concerned about using a higher level technology. I think that's the greatest change in the ultrasonic business was way back when you got an old Controllatron 20, 30 years ago that was still going ping, ping, ping. You had to get the right sound speed and the right temperature and everything just to get it to work. And now we're getting close to iPhone technology where you're basically has an autopilot on it and it kind of figures it out, a lot of these things for yourself. So it's really quite amazing well, it hasn't been a short length of time either, has it? It's been over 40 years to learn some of these things. So that's how far back we go. So the technology has really changed for sure. So with that in mind, you and I, two old guys there, was it difficult bringing your customers up on the learning curve? As we started off with pneumatics, then we went to analog, then we went to digital, and now we're talking to your cloud right now. Was it hard to get your customers to go along with the changes of the evolution of all these different flow meters there? You're like a teacher all along, starting up from pneumatics to the cloud. A lot of people got lost in the middle, so you had to kind of coach people to digest and use the new technology.
Well, that's funny. By and large, I'd say no, it wasn't hard to bring people along. A lot of the people that I did business with were folks that either embraced technology or had to embrace technology in their work. Mm-hmm. I arranged with customers that were PhD engineers to fellas in parts of Kentucky that had GEDs. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you mentioned cell phones because I saw a meter that actually had an interface that was Bluetooth connected to the electronics. So literally, it went from the days of shinning out on pipes in power plants to your cell phone story. And I always felt and still feel that the issue with an ultrasonic flow meter is not whether it works or not. Generally, if it doesn't work, you know why. Mm-hmm. Okay, the problem is having enough faith that the number it's giving you is something you can take to the bank. So the tough part in our early days, you and I, was looking at a meter that flashed a little red light. Well, if the light's on, it's got to be right, you know, and it was kind of 50-50 in the back of your mind. And saying, well, how's this number look? And you're hoping the customer was optimistic and say, oh, well, that's dead on. Yeah, we're going to buy that meter. Yeah. And then to the days of, well, Jeff, it's not reading. And then you look at him and say, well, the pipe's empty. And the guy says, well, you're absolutely nutty. KRWA application was sitting on top of the hill, and the KRWA guy said, I just blocked this, Jeff. I'm in far eastern Kentucky, and the meter doesn't work. Okay, Barry, I'm going to come down and meet you down there. Yeah. So I meet him down there, and we go down, and we clamp on the pipe, and I take a look at it, and I said, yeah, I'm right there, Barry. It's an empty pipe. Got the computer hooked up to it now. You know, this is several years ago. You use your phone now, but computer hooked up to it. I said, there's no waveform. There's nothing come back. I said, Jeff, the water plant's there. The city's over there. We're on top of a mountain in eastern Kentucky. There's got to be water flowing through it. I said, well, then you got a partially filled pipe. Well, the supervisor comes over and says, what's going on? I said, I think we got an empty pipe here, at least partially filled. Hey, how many pumps we got on? He's calling down to the water plant. Well, we got one. I said, what's it running? I said, full speed. It's about 1,500 gallons. I said, all right, put the other two on. So we're looking at the computer screen, we're looking at the meter, and all of a sudden, whoop, 4,500 gallons a minute, and it's working. And so moral to the story is you got to trust your technology. And it's advanced enough. You know, then it was at a computer. Now, you know, you got the computer built into it where you can look at the numbers and you can say, yeah, I can trust this.
You can. And you got to know about the technology. So we're in the basement of a hotel, and the guy wants to check his water meter coming into the hotel. It's a 12-inch line. So we're in the basement. We hook up our clamp-on ultrasonic flow meter in the basement, and the maintenance manager says, I'm going to go turn the water on. Comes running back. He said, what'd you see? We said, nothing. He says, well, let me go do it again. He runs back up the stairs. Comes back again. He says, what'd you see? I said, nothing. I said, this is a 12-inch water line. What you got? They said, I flushed the toilet 3 times. I didn't see it. So the problem is everything has a minimum threshold. So the ultrasonic technology is like 1/10 of a foot per second. And for that reason, they had a compound water meter in there. So it had a 12-inch meter in it, and it also had a 1-inch meter in it, and it increased the velocity so they could read it. So part of your job and part of my job is to educate the customers the specification required. So like you said, partially filled pipe, if it was less than a foot per second, a red flag might have gone up that, you know what, that's a possibility based upon my experience with flow rates like that. So it's always been very difficult for me to convince somebody to buy a flow meter for leak detection. And again, if it's a very big pipe and the pipe's just dribbling out, you're not going to pick it up.
Well, and I appreciate that. The difference is, and again, you were talking earlier and struck my mind of a story. I'm in a lab with a water district, and so we're clamped to a 2-inch pipe, and they've got a calibrator attached. So it's kind of like, oh, Jeff, we can't read that low end anymore. We want to be able to read 5 gallons a minute in these big pipes. And they could do that previously. Mm-hmm. But there's a caveat, and that gets to what you're saying. So hook it on and go through and do all the settings correctly here, reading off the little Jeff Merman step-by-step arrangement. It's like, we weren't doing that, Jeff. And it's like, oh, we didn't do that either. So we got it all set up. So the lab's running 3-inch pipe, 3-inch steel pipe. I said 2 and 3-inch, and clamp the transducers on just right. And so they're reading 2 gallons a minute, and I'm working on the numbers, and they're sitting there saying, so what are you getting? I said, well, I got 2.2. They said, well, what's going on? I said, I don't know. Let me look. Why, go ahead. It's like, it is like, 0.5 feet per second. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, the specification is, 1% of reading plus that full scale. By the time we calculated it out, we were well within it. And if you're doing leak detection, mm-hmm. You're interested in the direction, not necessarily the flow rate. But if all the numbers read right, they were happy campers. They were tickled to death at 2.2. Yeah. I'm frustrated about the fact that it isn't within the 1%. So moral to the story is, yes, it's a lousy meter to calibrate the toilet flush. Although I have done that before, and I've been within 1% at a Toyota plant. But getting back to your point, you have to understand there is a minimum velocity. All meters, no meter has infinite turn down. There is a minimum cutoff. You got to understand that. And your meter may actually be set to cut you off below that. So you got to open that up.
That's it.
But yes, it's all about settings. It's understanding that and realizing that sometimes the answer is no. And why? Because that gets back to the confidence.
Yeah. Have you ever had a successful bucket test?
Yeah, actually so.
Oh, I've had so many bad ones.
Interesting. On a Dynasonics, filled up a 55-gallon drum. Yeah. We were in a lab for a company called Cintas. They were interested in looking at how much wash water they were using on washing machines, and hold that thought. So they were testing the accuracy, and I'm sitting there with my fingers crossed, and they're filling the 55-gallon bucket up, and they're looking at it saying, wow, that's really good, Jeff. And I'm looking over, and it's 55.2. Yeah. I'm saying, velocity's high enough, right? We'll go back to the washing machine. So all of a sudden I get a phone call that says, Jeff, the washing machine keeps going off and filling, and it's not picking it up. Come back, take a look, and well, what's happening? Well, listen, the washing machine runs, and every once in a while you hear a psst, 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 where it's topping the water off. Yeah. Oh man! So tune it up again, take off all the cutoffs. Now the meter's jittery as all heck, and back to the crossing the fingers. Of course, they never did a bucket test after that. Yeah. But it did give them an indication. So, as I like to say back in the day, you can tune it up. I can take some things away. You may suffer some accuracy, but I can at least point you in a direction. You might be plus or minus 20% when you're done. But this comment in that case came back, well, at these low flow rates, what do I care?
What are your guidelines? If you're going to specify a flow meter, what are your guidelines for specifying that flow meter? What kind of details do you need to recommend the right type of technology?
It's funny because manufacturers, in fact, thank you, Brent Baird, Dynasonics did a great job of having what I called the application data form. And that was a form where you'd fill in the blanks of what the critical stuff was.
Yeah.
And then each principal that I represented, Sierra and others, had quirks, whether it was gas or whether it was steam or whatever it might be. So I kind of completed my own. But it's funny because all meters boil down to a few things. Number one, how big's the pipe? Number two, what's it made of? Number three, what's the schedule? Because the outside diameter doesn't necessarily represent the inside diameter for a velocity-driven pipe. You don't want to burn them up, so what's the temperatures? In the case of inline, you don't want to blow them up, so you want to know what the pressures are. You absolutely need to know what the media is, because we all know that lime slurry doesn't work on ultrasonic flow meters. And then after that, it becomes connections, the wiring. So it's what's the area classification, because different meters, of course, have different area classifications to meet the National Electric Code or the European standards, whatever those might be. If you're in a company that uses European numbers, need to know the voltage. Back in the day when we started, 120 volts was it. Now everybody likes 24 volts, and low voltage is safer.
Yeah, for sure.
And less expensive typically, so I always drove them to 24 volts. Oh, yes, our electrical people
How about the
like
grounding
that.
issue? Did you see any more or less problems because of that?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. People didn't always understand grounding. Couldn't get a meter to work one time. It's like, oh, look, you've got 4 volts AC between ground and neutral
Is that
here.
so?
Yes.
And it didn't work out. Huh?
It didn't work out. So, yeah, so that, and then finally, is an indoor-outdoor. So you collect that data together, and most times you can figure it out from there. Now, back to your other question. Jeff, I don't know. Okay. I can do some estimates based on my personal experience.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional engineer, so I can tell you what my best practices and best experience are, but you have to say yes, because if it doesn't work, risk is yours.
Yeah.
10 feet per second is pretty well a velocity that's going to be the maximum you'll ever see.
Yeah.
Now that percent of full scale, you'll suffer some accuracy. Water systems in plants rarely get above 50 pounds, but it doesn't matter for ultrasonics. Newer ultrasonic meters had thickness gauges, so you could kind of get an idea on how that was going to work for you as far as the velocities. We know your minimum can't get below 1/10 of a foot per second. So, if you go in a 1 to 10 foot per second, you're going to be in the sweet spot or sweetest spot of the meter. So there was some ways to kind of guide it in and then hand it to them. Said, now, if you'll sign this, we'll do this. And then when they come back and say, Jeff, that meter doesn't work, I say, do you remember this that we signed? And of course, the other part that said you've got a clean pipe and you're unobstructed flow.
Right.
And the other one we haven't talked about and should have been in that list I gave you, do you have a long enough pipe to make sure you have a fully developed flow profile?
Well, with that in mind, what has been one of your most challenging applications that you solved? What's the big win? What's the big career win?
There are so many. The biggest flow meter career win.
That could be ultrasonic, magnetic, whatever you got.
The VA.
Yeah.
The VA, when the Obama administration came in, they were looking for shovel-ready projects. And the VA wanted to equip all of their properties with flow meters for all their utilities: steam, natural gas, compressed air. Well, they didn't have compressed air, but water.
Right.
So lots of challenges. You're going into plants that some of which were built in the 50s.
Right.
So upstream and downstream diameters you just about had to throw out.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate to be able to get one of the contracts. And when we were asked to bid it, we bid it, and I have my 18-point disclaimer that I attached to all my quotes that says these conditions have to get made. And we're more than happy to come out and qualify cable lengths and make sure pipes are long enough. So we get the order, we're out walking around, and there were places where, oh boy, this is going to be real dicey in terms of upstream and downstream diameters. We can try it, but you may compromise your accuracy. So there were a couple places they came back and said, let's test them. There were others. I had a factory guy there that says, is this going to work? And well, again, based on my experience, we've seen them work here and have decent accuracy. So check off, you've just signed these, so you've accepted it. And then there were others that we told them, you don't stand a chance. You got, a 4-inch pipe this long, you're just not going to get it. You're going to have to do some replumbing. And they did. And very successful, very happy customers. I don't know what they did with the DCS system that they attached to it with, but the meter's all qualified. We got paid.
That's all that counts.
Life is good, yeah.
Now, that's another thing that Jeff has is you've always made money on a project, even at my expense. I remember that.
Well, yes.
All right. Well, we talked about determining the specification application. And as far as the different marketplaces, like you said, you sold everything where you lived there, and you sold all around the world. Did you have any influence or reaction with products coming from out of the country? So, for example, we've had some products come in from China and other countries there that the referencing of the technology and how good it worked was literally something a little bit different when you ended up getting it. Was there some... it was a value add that you got something, was a mass manufactured thing from out of the country, but when it came to you, how did you address that problem?
We encountered, my company encountered quite a bit of overseas competition.
Yeah.
I'm Roman Catholic, as I said earlier, and the nuns taught me guilt. So, there were some specifications that were made in America. That was easy. The second thing that I encountered was the quality of some of the equipment wasn't so good.
Yeah.
The quality of manuals and technical support was not so good. On the flip side, there's a Japanese product I have in mind specifically that is wonderful. It's a great price point, works well, but their specifications were cut so wide that it's like, there is no accuracy specification. So, I found myself looking at specs. My accountant called our company a concierge company.
Concierge company, huh?
Well, and you say that with a chuckle, but in all seriousness, we took care of our customers. And I'm learning now we spoiled them.
Yes.
Because we gave such good service. And in the end, then it became a confidence factor. You're asking me, customers would ask, Jeff, I got this thing, it's less expensive. What do you think? Well, let's go over together. And I've actually had cases where I've told customers, you'd be crazy not to buy this. And
sure.
Then I became the rep for that product. And, that's another matter. But so it's a matter of being able to trust, have built that trust and know that it's going to work, whether it's Jeff Merman or anybody else as a customer, kind of feeling comfortable that I've read through all the technical, I understand my specifications, make sure it works.
Mm-hmm. So how do flow meters play a role in water conservation and management efforts?
I like to tell people that I am an environmentalist that believes in better living through chemistry. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is, yes, I hug the trees, I conserve the water, I pick up plastic when I'm hiking, I pick up everything when I'm hiking. My friends swear that when I die, they're going to throw trash bags in my coffin.
That so?
Yeah, so I'm very conscientious of water conservation, and also with my work with KRWA. They're all about clean water and fresh water, so this is huge to me. Thank you for asking. So what does it mean? Some of the most conscientious customers that I've met are in the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. In fact, they have a board that meets in which all the manufacturers sit around and teach each other how to reduce their carbon footprint, how to reduce their utility costs. And by this exchange, it's mutually beneficial, because when the government wants you to get smarter about your hydrocarbon footprint, when you can point out a mindset of conservation, that's important. But back to water conservation, if I save water, I can save some money. Sure. Now, typically, that's the least expensive utility. But typically, if I'm conscientious about saving water, I'm saving gas, saving compressed air, and we're going to go through the plant and do it all. So meters are huge in that. It makes you start thinking about things like blowdown in water systems as well as in cooling towers. It makes you start thinking about finding leaks, those trickles per minute leak that in a city, you think, well, 5 gallon a minute leak. Well, a 5 gallon a minute leak in some cities can buy you, in most areas, can buy you a Ford pickup.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
yes, very important.
So then the next step, that's water conservation. On the energy side, I know that you achieved Energy Star status with your office there. We've tried to move BTU, or energy management equipment, but when it gets down to it, the cost of energy here versus Europe and other places is relatively inexpensive, and the projects that we got monitoring BTU was water and temperature differential. We found only in very large projects like a university and hospitals and things like that. Have you run across that?
In Europe and Asia, they sell BTUs, so it's a natural. In the United States, not so. I sold very few BTU meters, and as you said, it's generally a performance. This is new to the business to me, but companies, there was a company, Harshal Train, that went to the Army, put an entire boiler plant in for free, and said, we are going to, over the next 5 years, you're going to let us take all the cost savings, and it'll pay off the plant and make money for us. Well, they replaced a late 40s vintage power plant with a new power plant. So, hey, easy peasy, they made out very well. So they were very interested in BTUs because they wanted to be able to prove that they were actually delivering what they needed for the facility to use. So you do run into some places where it's important.
So, and that brings up one typical application, like you just mentioned there. A lot of facilities don't have an introductory level of information to make a decision for the return on investment. So did you ever get involved in the discovery process? So that's day one, you walked into the facility and said, okay, this is your situation. And then they would go do a retrofit. And then day two, after the retrofit, did they have you come back again? And was there a differential between the Gazinta and the Gazauta time?
Yeah. I got to the point in my business where when I would talk to a customer and we're about to ready to launch a very expensive project, and we're sitting there and I'm making some suggestions of let's get a baseline of where we started. Because I can guarantee you with 100% certainty that we're going to get called into a meeting with some VP someplace that says, Jeff, I've spent all this money on these flow meters and I expected to get a whole lot better results. Yeah. And, then there's the look of panic before the customer's given me the order. And I put aside his concerns and say, well, here's what's going to happen. Now, frankly, it may work very, very well, but it may not. But we are in a position, since you had no baseline, you took a baseline to start, that we can at least start measuring change. So dead nuts accuracy, maybe we don't agree with the meter out front, but you've seen some kind of step change. And that step change is what's important to you in terms of your savings and where you get your ROI and where management's happy. And in those conversations with the VP when they're angry, I sit there and say, yeah, but you didn't want to change a lot of pipes, so we're getting better data. And I can put portables on here and qualify how good we're doing. So to answer your question, yeah, I've had some very good experiences where I go, whew, everything measured up to exactly what I said I was going to do. I've had some experience with by the way, it wasn't quite as good as we expected. Yeah. So, but I've been able to qualify it because they had bad things in their plant. Yeah. I've had a few occasions where I've taken flow meters back. And my principals, one of which being Dynasonics, has been great about saying, oh, that's a screw up. They're never going to work there, and we're going to be nice guys.
We're going to be nice guys, but hey, customer service goes to a level, but the customer does have to participate.
Yes, and they have to own responsibility.
Yeah. So we have a few wrap-up questions.
Sure.
So after all the knowledge that you've gained over these past some 40-odd years, oh, God.
Yeah, I had dark hair and I was a lot thinner then.
Well, if you go back in time and talk to your former self for the first working day for automatic controls, what advice would you give?
Be confident in what you're selling. You're a rookie now, but someday you'll look like me, and don't be afraid. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Don't change a mindset. Jim Shembry owned automatic controls when I started, and he had this philosophy. It was biblical. Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be open to you. Knock on the doors, ask for the orders, seek the opportunities. Learn that lesson early. It would have saved you a whole lot of time and frustration with customers that probably really wanted to give you the order. This may sound funny, but hey, every single hour you work, sometimes there's just one less sales call you can make and maybe spend a little more time at home.
Yeah.
And it will make a difference in your career 40-odd years later. Because, and frankly, I've had this sitting now where I'm at. It's like, gosh, if I were able to make that ball game I missed, would the business I took care of that day have suffered? There comes that point of diminishing return where maybe I could have done one more thing at home.
Yeah. Well, such the life of someone who brings home the bacon all the time. It's always a decision.
Yes.
So, with some levity, what's your favorite funny story you tell people?
Haven't I told you enough of them?
No.
My favorite funny story that I like to tell people. Gosh, there's so many.
We have a picture here of Jeff Merman. Has nothing to say.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my funniest story, actually, I'll tell you my funniest story. And this is very professional. I worked in restarting. I had to take a job, as I think I've shared with you earlier. And I worked last summer for 6 weeks teaching boys and girls, because Scouting USA now is young men and women on the Boy Scout side. It's been that way since 1970, but had a chance to teach young people how to ride ATVs. And I learned some things about young people. I had the pleasure over 6 weeks of teaching Sheldon Cooper. They're youth, so they're youth protection. I can't say their names. So I taught Sheldon Cooper how to ride ATVs. I taught Bo Duke how to ride ATVs, and he's my favorite story.
Yeah.
He's my favorite story. Bo Duke was about 80 pounds soaking wet. He is, probably 4 foot nothing. His hands were like this to mine, He couldn't touch the brakes on the ATV, but I made him extend his fingers and point at him, right? So he's learning, at 14 years old, learned to ride an ATV. Great stuff, 80 pounds on top of several thousand pounds of machine. And we had to go through a course. There's an official course you have to complete before you go out riding in the woods. So I was trying to get him through the last obstacle, because everybody, all 11 other kids plus him's 12, were waiting to go on the trail. And so he had to get over this hill. And there's a technique for going, up the hill and coming down the hill and not flipping the ATV on yourself.
Sure.
Part of that is just a little acceleration at the base of the hill. And, his weight was so little. Shifting his weight didn't mean anything, but giving it a little gas. So after about the 5th time trying, I finally looked at him and said, "Bo, gas." Well, it was really cute. He floors it. And I'm hearing this thinking, this is going to be bad. And he's going up the hill, and I'm running after him. And I saw the ATV go up. I saw air between the wheels and the top of the hill. I'm running over the hill. He comes down with a bounce. The back end swings around. He's looking at my assistant. He's saying, "Gosh, that was fun. Can I do it again?" So I come running up to him, and I'm just standing there, and I'm staring at him. And I look at my assistant. I go over and I say, "Take a walk with him. Discuss what he did wrong."
Yeah.
Because if I have to discuss it with him, I'm going to wring his neck.
Yes.
Well, he came back. He understood. All was good. He wasn't hurt. Everything was fine. Get back into camp.
There you go.
And the nurse comes to me and says, "Jeff, You going to give me a report on that kid that hurt himself on ATVs? I'm saying, what? He said, yeah, I didn't know who the kid was, but I overheard this kid talking at dinner about, how he hurt himself on an ATV. Oh, no. So I go up to my room and I'm thinking, I know who this is. So I go running down. We go into camp. I get the scoutmaster. We go chasing the guy down. He's on a Menifee expedition, right? This is the big Olympics for the camp. And he's running around having fun with his buddies. And, we grab him at the snack bar and we take him down to the nurse. And apparently he has a reputation, believe it or not. Yes, a reputation. So the scoutmaster's talking to him now. Now, Bo, tell me exactly what happened. He went through and told her, and she said, did you get hurt? Oh, no, I'm fine. She said, so you really didn't fall off oh, no, I didn't fall off. But man, when I hit the ground, I felt like my backbone came out of my body, and I'm thinking, oh, the nurse won't like this. So she said, now, did your backbone really come out of your body? No. Did it really feel like that? Well, no. So we get to the nurse, and the nurse interviews him. Of course, everything's good, and all things are great. So, so now are you hurt? No. Do you need to go to the hospital? No. So he basically signed off that he was all right. But boy, So, Bo, why did you say that, you hurt yourself and you almost fell off? And he said, well, I like telling my friends that I almost died today. And she said, but you didn't die. No, I didn't die. So Scouts USA, we are in the clear. Bo survived, had a ball. He didn't pass the class. But yeah, that's my funniest professional story.
What a teacher.
Yes, thank you.
What a teacher.
Thank you.
So with that in mind, and our closing question, so what's next for Jeff Merman? Obviously, you like to stand up in front of a room. You like to teach. You like to tell stories. What are you going to do next?
Well, I'll answer your question and have a final comment. Of course, I got to have the last word. So what is next? I am passionate, as I told you before, about being the environmentalist that believes in better living through chemistry. I love Pope Francis. Pope Francis has written a document called Laudato Si. And basically, it talks about our common home, the earth. And, people want to get all bent out of shape about climate change. And I tell people, look, climate change is real. If you have any doubt about that, go ask a dinosaur, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then they sit there and grumble about, well, you people that hug trees. You people that hug trees. All you want to do is change the earth here. Yes. Now, let me ask, Brent, I'll ask you, would you take and dump garbage in your living room?
No,
you wouldn't. Would you take and dump chemicals into your kitchen sink?
No,
of course you wouldn't. Would you smoke cigar when you were young and you had young people or your grandkids? No. Would you smoke cigars around them? Well, of course you wouldn't. So why is it hard for us to imagine, pick up your own stupid paper, clean your water up, spend the money so that, they don't have to hand you this glass that says, here, drink this water. It has the highest level of lead in it that the EPA will allow. And you're saying, well, do I really want to do that? Yep. Do you want to turn over a world that your kids and your grandkids and your grandkids' have to walk around with masks on all the time? Sound familiar? Masks on all the time? No, we don't. And so there's ways to teach, to go into schools, to go into churches, to go into businesses, and start sharing some of the environmental conservation I've learned from some of the great companies, from Toyota, from Logan Aluminum, from these companies that have wetlands and do things to help our common home. Sure. So, that's kind of my next big adventure that I want to find myself getting into.
Good for you.
And finally, I have had the pleasure in my career of working, Brent, with some men and ladies that were geniuses. I have customers that are brilliant at what they've done. Some engineers, some not, some self-trained, but have thought of innovative ideas to solve problems. I can count them maybe on two hands. I've had the pleasure in my career of working with geniuses. God rest him, your dad being one. Sure. John Olin with Sierra being another. I can count on maybe one hand people who were brilliant in technology. Mm-hmm. And in all candor, I have to say you are among those geniuses. The ingenuity of coming up with this concept. You came up with Amazon for flow meters and done it with this kind of style and this kind of customer support even before the catalog guys could do it well.
Yeah.
And, my hat's off to you on that. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
And you have taught me many things. You have assured me that growing a mustache in our early 30s would make us look more mature and more experienced.
That's right. You had to grow a beard to look older.
That's right.
And now you got to grow a beard to cover up the face, so it's one way or the other, huh?
Well, I actually shaved mine off because I realized it was starting to make me look too old. and then I got to the point in my career where I felt like, gee, are these guys considering me relevant? They're kind of pushing me off this, old man.
Yeah.
I could tell I was getting old when engineers would offer to carry the demo for me. And at first I didn't like that, but second of all, I thought, well, this shows wisdom. It's easier on my back. And then finally, when I opened my mouth and I actually said things, it's like, ooh, we need to pay attention to him because he actually knows what he's doing. But that is thanks to a bunch of genius people like yourself.
And yourself, as you can
taught
see,
me many things.
We invite you here. You have a world of information. Mm-hmm. And so, as always, go out there and share it, because you will. No one else has a choice. You're going to tell them anyway.
Amen to that.
Nice to see you. Thanks,
Great
Jeff.
seeing you, brother. Thanks.
Take care. Well then, thank you for watching our program. For more information on flow meters, visit InstrumentsDirect.com. Now, if you'd like to share an intriguing story, an application, technology, or you're in the flow biz, well, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out to me right up here. See you in the next episode of Flow Meter Guy.